And we're live in 3, 2, and welcome everybody. We got the Planetmullins podcast here with our amazing guest today, American roots artist, Mr. Grant Maloy Smith. Hey, Grant.
Hey, how you doing? Good to see you, Rob.
Yeah, it's good to see you too, man. I'm so thrilled, particularly about getting a chance to speak with you because you've done so much amazing stuff. We're both members of the Recording Academy, and we're also both people that could probably use a word from my sponsor before we get started. So the sponsor for today's podcast is bodyrejuvenationcandles.com. They're candles with a purpose to emit light and moisturize and rejuvenate the skin as a lotion. They're incredibly therapeutic for dry skin. I use them and I love them. You can use them and you'll love them too. bodyrejuvenationcandles.com. So Grant Maloy Smith is a Billboard Top 10 recording artist, a MusicRow country breakout charting singer-songwriter of American roots music. His latest album, Dust Bowl, American Stories, spent 17 weeks on the Billboard Charts, including 11 weeks in the top 10. Grant made his Carnegie Hall debut, wow, in 2018. And he's won numerous awards, including 2 Grammy certificates. Now, is it a Grammy award or a certificate, just a parking ticket outside Staples?
The double parked.
You're double parked twice. Okay. And it says you'll be appearing at Carnegie Hall again in April 2021 and Lincoln Center in December of 2021. So, I mean, that's incredible. We'll just start right there. How do you get a gig at Carnegie Hall? How did you do that?
Well, it was under the auspices of the Indy Collaborative, which is an organization we might talk about, today. But
sure,
me and Eileen Sherman started about 5.5 years ago now, and so we put together a show between her. She does musical theater, and I do obviously rap music.
Right, obviously. Well, you got the rapper hat on.
Right. Who's a brilliant Grammy-winning contemporary instrumental artist, a flautist, classically trained, but now he plays really fun rhythmic stuff because he's from South Africa, so he does cool. So we put together a triple bill, and we just did it, and we filled the house.
Wow.
And we were going to do it again just a couple of months ago. It was supposed to be April of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Same with Lincoln Center, but everything got canceled for obvious reasons. So everything just got shifted a whole year ahead.
Right. Well, that's amazing. I mean, I watched one of your videos today during my show prep, and this, what strikes me the most about it is not only is it musically great, but it's just the spirit of what you're doing is so strong and powerful. I watched this thing, I think it's called We'll Be Together Again or something. What's it called?
We'll Stay Together.
We'll Stay Together. Yeah. And you had organized people from all over the globe playing this tune, simultaneously in their studios. And, I'm not a technical video genius, but I could just imagine how the boatload of hours in editing and combining, and you had people from 10 or 15 countries and people all over the US, and you were there, and it just is the kind of a message that I'm going to do everything I can to help you spread that kind of a message, because you're doing the opposite of what's going on in a lot of society, which is all the divisive stuff. And you're trying to bring people together. Did you write that original song, or was that a collab as well?
No, I wrote the song. I wrote it for the Indy Collaborative. We do showcases when there's not a worldwide pandemic. We do showcases, and like the one we did at Carnegie Hall. That was
okay.
We also do showcases where we have about 20 of our artists perform. One of it was like 5 minutes each for hours. I wrote it to end our shows with, because it is about being together. We're a collaboration. That's in our name, even Indy Collaborative, and that's the spirit. I wanted to write a song that represented our spirit, that we could all sing together at the end of any kind of a show or showcase that we do. And this year, when everything got canceled, I thought, I can't go out and drive around in the country and play shows for who knows how long. So why don't I take that song and make a basic recording myself here in the studio,
Mm-hmm.
send it out to the whole, hive mind, and let whoever wants to contribute a track to it, or a vocal, or a guitar part, or a saxophone, whatever, to send it to me. And also, if you want to make a little video of you doing that, then first I'll create the track, a song, a recording of the song with all the people on it. We had like 70 artists on the recording.
Yeah, it's
70.
amazing.
Then when I made the video, I got even more people involved because people could just sing the chorus and videotape themselves, even though the recording was already done. We had already had 70 vocals. We really didn't need any more, but
Wow.
I wanted to faces, smiling indie collaborative musician faces in the videos that I could. So the video has like 100 people in it.
It's amazing. I mean, it's an incredible achievement, and very well synchronized and edited, and definitely the recording is stellar. And that's something that in the Zoom era of the world, it's really kind of a crapshoot sometimes. I mean, I'll get online and teach a music lesson, and sometimes the internet's so bad, the student on the other end says, "You sound like a robot. You don't sound like yourself." And then they'll play their keyboard and it'll just be bing, 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 bing. So, it's quite a feather in your cap that you're able to technically organize all that stuff. Now, speaking of songwriting, are you a songwriter that starts with a chord progression or a lyric idea or a general vision and concept? What's your process in writing music?
It does vary, and I've written songs all of those ways. Sometimes I'm just practicing here, or in a hotel room even, and I come across something that I like, and I go, I think that I could make that into a song, and then it turns into a song eventually. Sometimes I come up with an idea about something like the song I wrote, "Waiting for the Good Old Days Again." That's about being locked down during the COVID, the height of it, or the worst of it. So that started as I want to write a song about that. I had
Right.
an idea of what I wanted it to write about and what I wanted it to sound like. And other times I wake up in the morning with an idea, just, from a dream state, or standing in the shower, half awake, and just get a good idea, and then have to dry off real quick and get down here and try to.
I worked with a famous saxophone player named Ronnie Laws, a jazz guy, for quite a few years, and we were making an album, and he's really one of those. He's a super jazz in the fact that his organizational thing is at the very last minute sometimes. So I remember being at my place in Marina Del Rey, and I had to drive up to this ranch up the mountainside. I get this call from Ronnie right before I'm going to make the drive, and I hear the shower water. And he's in the shower. And he's like, "Mullins, I got to sing you this thing right now. It just came into my head. Come up with some chords before you come up." And he's like, "Boodle-dee-beep, beep, beep, boodle-dee-beep, beep, beep, da-bee-dee-dee, beep, beep." And I'm like, "Oh, okay." And, it just can happen at the weirdest time. But I noticed in looking at your, catalog and discography, you've just done a bunch of stuff. Like, how many albums are you at right now of your own stuff?
About 10, maybe, something
Yeah.
like that. I don't remember. I just finished recording one last week. A new
Oh,
one.
you have another project besides the one that's up for the Grammys and stuff, right?
Yes. Yeah. I'm on an album called Rooted in Song, which, so I have one song on that record. It's a collection of, I think it's 10 or 11 artists who represent the breadth of American roots music, because it's not just one. It's not a very specific category, unlike, well, even jazz has many variations and forms.
Sure.
American roots is really like, I call it the island of misfit toys, because it's like anybody who doesn't fit into country squarely, or bluegrass, or folk music, someone that's in between those worlds, or any combination of those things, but not exactly any one of them, goes into
Ah,
category. So it's like a catch-all, a backstop, if you will. So Grammy-winning producer Chuck Ebert from Fort Worth put together this record, and I'm so pleased and honored that he invited me to be on it, to contribute a song to it. So I
well, speaking of Texas, now this is something interesting too that we talked about a little bit on the phone the other day, because you said you're from the Florida Panhandle, and you know, something, the fact that a lot of people don't know about me is that I was born in Oklahoma.
Oh, wow.
So my whole family's from Oklahoma, and me being like a Hollywood jazz dude and Oklahoma, those things don't really go together. And sometimes there's not enough rungs on the memory ladder in people's minds to allow, well, Rob is, you know, Hollywood, but he's from Oklahoma. And then for you, what was so funny when we talked the other day is you said, oh, I'm originally from the Florida Panhandle. And I was thinking to myself, isn't that where like all that weird Burt Reynolds, those weird movies and stuff, is that area? And then how do you go, I mean, it's a long question, but how do you go from that area all the way up to, you're in Rhode Island now? And what was that? I mean, just give my listeners a little bit of your story, if you would.
Sure. Well, I was born, my dad was a Navy pilot, so we lived several different places. I was actually born in Jacksonville, Florida, which is on the Atlantic coast, right up near the Georgia border.
Uh-huh.
Moved to San Diego for like 11 months, and then we got shifted back to Florida, and that's when we moved to the Pensacola area in the Panhandle. That's the part of Florida that sticks out underneath Alabama. And so my house was like, if you went 15 miles to the south, you'd be in the Gulf of Mexico, and if you went like maybe 20 miles north, you'd be at the border of Alabama.
Oh, wow.
That part of Florida, jokingly, they call it Lower Alabama. More Alabama than Florida, that's for sure. And back when I was there, it was pretty rednecky. It's a lot nicer now. Well, it was nice then too, but it was definitely a redneck thing about it.
Uh-huh.
And not necessarily in the best way, but that's long gone. That's 50 years ago that I left. So.
Oh, wow, that's quite a while.
You know, my family moved up here when I was like about 10, so I had no choice but to come.
Right.
I did want to see snow though, because I never had seen snow before. We moved up here in December, and I was so excited. And then when I put my hands in the snow, and then 3 minutes later I couldn't feel my fingers anymore, I thought, okay, let's go back home now. I don't.
That was how it was for me when my dad moved us from LA to Denver, and it snowed on my birthday. Was the first snowstorm of the year, and I was 15, and we couldn't go anywhere or do anything, and I just was. And you know, you get out there, and then of course, me being a teenage son, my dad was like, well, here's the shovel, and you know, here's your gloves, get out there. And I'm just going, FML, man, FML. I'm not doing this. I can't believe it. I hate it. And then you come inside and you're like, okay, I get an hour at the piano. Oh no. Fingers don't work. No, it's
That'd be like progressive jazz, I guess, if you played with your elbows.
I had a couple of people on Facebook, and this is funny too, how we're all connected in these interesting new ways, who actually came out and they said, well, you're a jazz guy. You're not going to be able to talk to that country dude, and he's not going to want to talk to you. And you guys are too different. It's going to go terrible.
Works at all.
And I just had to laugh because, you know, that's just a narrow-mindedness that I think as members of the Recording Academy, we don't really have that kind of problem. And I noticed even Danae Vlase was in your video singing her little choral part there. And I interviewed her last week, and then she mentioned that you and I, the two of you, have done some things too, and she's all the way to the European classical thing, and you're more of the country thing. So it's just great having you on, man. I see you got that guitar and a mic there, and so far in all the podcasts I've done, nobody's had the courage to come on and just play and sing live. You'll be the first one.
I guess I will, if you want me to.
I sure do, man, because that's tempting, seeing you there with the guitar and the mic and everything. And I think you even have the modern technology of reverb and stuff like that. So if you want to play something for everybody, just tell us what it is and then go for it.
Yeah, well, right in the middle, maybe the lowest point of this whole COVID thing, I wrote a song called Waiting for the Good Old Days Again. I think I mentioned it earlier. Because I was just feeling sad and sorry for myself. I shouldn't have, because everybody, the whole world's going through it, not just me. obviously, but you know how we get sometimes. But I wanted to write a song about it. I think it, even when you're kind of sad and feeling isolated, it feels good to let it out. That's why sad songs are popular, because you wouldn't think they would be, but they are, because it's cathartic when you hear a song and you're feeling low. It makes you feel like maybe you're not alone. You're not the only one going through that. And it's comforting. It's kind of, that's why we have funerals, right? It's not for them. They're already gone. It's for us to help us get past, the emotions we're going through.
Right, exactly.
So I hope you like it. I'll try not to mess it up. I haven't played it in a few weeks, so there's always a chance I'll mess it up. But if I do, that's okay.
Alrighty.
Here, if I can figure out how to
Cool, man. Looking forward to it. Yeah, I always like seeing people play live, man. I love the live thing. It's great.
Before I play it, I have to say I really miss playing live.
Oh, me too.
I've done some of the shows on the internet, but it's not the same. I mean, it's better than nothing, but it's really not the same.
Yeah, I got my fingers crossed, man, that it's all going to come back and we're going to be okay. Yeah.
Well, we will. We'll get past it. That's the message of the song here, that we will get through this.
Cool.
Can you hear that okay? Because we have good volume and all. Okay. I've been down, but not this far. I can't find my good luck star. It's a dreary road that we've been on. You don't miss nothing till it's gone. Better days that might have been, drinking late and sleeping in. TV's on for 10 hours straight. I wasn't meant to hide and wait. Days get so lonely, my friend. When will I see you again? I am isolated and bleeding through my skin. I'm just waiting for the good old days again. Yes, I'm waiting for the good old days again. I worked hard since I was young. I mostly made up my own luck. They say time is on our side. Well, tell that to the ones who've died. There will come another day. Useless talk will blow away. Babies born and sunny skies. Love and longing in our eyes. Days get so lonely, my friend. When will I see you again? I am isolated and bleeding through my skin. I'm just waiting for the good old days again. Yes, I'm waiting for the good old days again.
Wow, man. Yeah. That was so awesome. I see that piano keyboard there. I was ready to jump in with a few Floyd Kramer licks.
That was my music.
Man, it's I have a friend of mine who actually lives in Nashville. She's a retired country singer, and I was talking with her today about this thing with you, and she's still got an amazing voice. Like her voice is great. And she was in a duo, and she said, "Oh, you're interviewing a country guy and he's playing guitar?" And I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Is he going to play live?" And I said, "I sure hope so." And she said, "I sat around waiting for my partner in my duo to tune that damn thing. And that 2-hour rehearsal, it was half hour of tuning the damn guitar. Then he couldn't get the microphone right. And, you know, it's so refreshing to see you sitting there just, that was, you know, you could have just hit record and that would have been good enough to be on an album. The guitar's in tune. You have an interesting kind of like the bass lines and the chord progression, and your voice is great. And I love seeing artists at your level of expertise, man. I just love it because
I
and
think people to just play. I do know what you mean. There's some people that they're kind of, and they could be quite good too. It doesn't mean that they're not good. But they're maybe nervous about it, or they want everything to be absolutely perfect.
ah
Nothing's ever going to be perfect, and why should it be? It would sound like a robot did it. So I don't mind if my voice quavers or cracks once in a while, or you know, play a wrong chord on the guitar.
uh
Well, that only happened once ever, right? That exactly that way. And
right.
there you saw it, and if you weren't there, you didn't see it. I think people like things to be live, and they like them to feel spontaneous and not perfect, and not like it's being auto-tuned by some guy, some engineer in the other room or something, you know, or up there by the board. That they're getting the real experience of the artist and all the magic that can be when you have a good artist really playing good stuff and meaning it, you know, playing from their heart. I think
Now,
that's
how did you develop the all of your like technical studio skills and stuff too? Like, do you engineer a lot of your own stuff, I would think?
I do. Um,
How
uh,
did you learn? How did you learn engineering? Just trial and error, or what?
the last 40 years, I think. I started with tape recorders, you know, back in the 70s, and uh, and a real tiny little mixing board and a couple of $100 microphones. You know, that's all I could afford back then. A 4-track deck.
Oh yeah,
That's it. That's all I had. So yeah, you just learn. You know, if you spend 4 decades doing something, you can get fairly good at it. I wouldn't say I'm the greatest engineer in the world, that's for sure.
right.
When I make a record, a real record, like an album, like the one I just finished tracking on, I always have a co-producer who's way better than me, so I can be as good as I can possibly be. Plus, I think when you're going to be the artist, you really should be focused on your performance and that kind of stuff, and not be all discombobulated by thinking about the gain and the side chain and all that technical stuff.
Right.
When I make demos and my own stuff here, I have no choice but to do it all. But on the other hand, there's less pressure. I'm not making a full studio album here in this room. I'll do some vocal parts here and some guitar parts here, but really the stuff is really recorded by my co-producer Jeff Silverman over in Nashville. He's so great. He did the Dust Bowl album, my most recent album. He's doing this one with me, the new Appalachia record that I just finished tracking, and he's going to start mixing next week. So it's going to be, he's so great. He has a great ear for not just mixing and technical stuff, but he brings out the best in the performers, which is, I think, the key role of a good producer. A great producer can always hire a good engineer or two to run things and make sure the levels are right.
Right.
But the most important, the more important job of a producer is to bring out the best in the songs and the performers, really, to get the best result.
Right. Now, you have obviously a lot of experience in all of these different studio worlds and probably played a lot of gigs. I remember even years ago, one of my students calculated, he was like a scientist at USC, and he said, "How many hours do you think you've done as a piano teacher? And how many hours of live shows have you done in your life?" And we went through the stuff, and it was 40,000 hours of one-on-one piano lessons.
Wow.
And it was 32,000 something of live gig time. And, you know, I bet you're in those same kind of numbers as far as the live and the studio stuff. Now, when you're doing these things, do you have an instrumentation that you really like? Do you mainly think of okay, I'm going to sing the lead here, and then I surround it with pedal steel and drums and bass, or how do you like put that part together?
Yeah, I usually have a vision for what I want, and that's what I do here in this studio. I call this more like a project studio. So I'll create a demo of my song, and I sort of dress it up with what I uh, feel like it should have in terms of instrumentation.
Okay.
And but then we replace all that stuff with real people playing way better than the stuff. But I just dress it up a little bit to give the feeling of the character of the recording.
So it's more like a suggestion or an arrangement idea, and then you put it with the real people.
Right, exactly. And sometimes, not often, but sometimes, like Jeff will have a better idea. Like, should we just maybe have this only with guitar and maybe a fiddle or something like that, and make it really, he comes up with great ideas like that too.
Right. Yeah. Well, did you ever play or try to play steel guitar?
No, I've never sat down in front of one and tried to play it. It's
Yeah.
it's an intimidating instrument because there's a lot to it, and I don't think
Man,
I have the brain power to figure out the pedal steel.
man, I have a really good friend that plays steel in Denver, and he's also a producer and works in Nashville. His name is John Macy, and John and I met through a pedal steel player named Buddy Emmons, who was one of the first country guys to go jazz on the steel guitar. And I worked with Buddy when I was young. And man, I'm right there with you. I look at these guys and I go, how the heck? What the hell? I mean,
Knee leverage too. You gotta throw with your knees and
right.
your foot too. And these things have 11 strings on them. And there's two different ones, two different tunings, and it's just insane. I don't know how they figure it out. Just last week we had Mike Johnson play on my record. He also played on Dust Bowl.
Okay.
Country music. He's played with. You can't name a country artist of the last 50 years that guy hasn't played with.
Really?
He's singing at the Opry now with Vince Gill and Reba, the three of them. Well, there's other people too, but he's been doing that. He's played with everybody. He's so great.
I look at the whole thing about steel guitar, and then I just try and imagine. Do you ever do something like this? You go, okay, let's get inside the head of the person that created that thing. And what happens? He gets up in the morning and says, okay, I'm having bacon and eggs. All right, what am I going to do? I'm going to lay two like guitar necks kind of sideways across each other, build a bunch of little knee levers in there, have it, you got an arm like you got Parkinson's for half the time. And I'm going to build that and sell it. I mean, what?
And no one will ever figure out.
I don't know, man. I just, I marvel at some of the instruments that are out there, but I love the sound of just, 6-string, 12-string guitar. I fell in love with James Taylor's music with his kind of simple guitar stuff. And when I listen to your bass lines, it sounds like maybe you were influenced a little bit by him. I don't know.
I don't think consciously, but I think it's impossible not to be influenced by him. I've been hearing his music since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
Came out in the late 60s. He was on the Apple Records, I think, in 1969, right? The Beatles.
Right.
And he has a very characteristic style and singing voice as well. And the two of them are inextricable from each other. I don't think anybody that's been around during the time that we've been around could not help but be influenced by him in some way. Certainly his guitar, I would love to be able to play as well as he does. He's an amazing guitar player.
He was the only guitar player I tried to ever play like, because I got an acoustic guitar from one of my sister's boyfriends when that Sweet Baby James album came out. And I was learning to play, Fire and Rain. And he taught me what a hammer-on was. And then I realized that Floyd Kramer, the piano player, had made a whole career of hammer-ons on the piano. That was kind of all he did, was just like prang, doing that thing. And you're right. I mean, JT just has impacted everything so much. And he even has a little bit of a jazzy side in there on some things. Now, did you explore other genres of music before you kind of locked in and honed in on this roots thing?
I did, actually. And when I grew up in Lower Alabama, I was influenced by, I had like an angel on each shoulder. I don't know which one was which, but one of them was the kind of mountain music of my grandmother and my mother. They were from Eastern Kentucky, not
Okay.
all the way back like to the 1700s in Eastern Kentucky, and they really, especially my grandmother, loved what she called her mountain music, which was like really old-fashioned by today's standards, country music, but kind of before there was even bluegrass. Mountain music sort of turned into bluegrass, and some of it split off and became country music. She loved all that stuff and played that for me all the time. And I liked it because I was little and she was my grandmother. But then when the Beatles came out, even though I was only like 4 years old, the whole world, of course, became infatuated with the Beatles, and so did I. And so I sort of went off in like that early rock and roll kind of direction when I started doing music when I was about 10. I really playing kind of rock and roll. And when even in my 20s and 30s, I was still kind of doing. They were more thoughtful songs, but still they were kind of storytelling songs. And everybody always told me, you should just write country music because your songs always have stories and they just have the feeling, even if they've got electric guitars banging away, they still feel like they should be country songs. And I was like, I'm not gonna get out of here. I want to jump around with my spandex pants on. But then
man, well, I'm gonna have to go on a deep search on Amazon on the dark web and find you in the spandex and put that on Facebook.
a little embarrassing. But then I got a little bit older and I thought, yeah, it's not, plus I kind of got bored doing that kind of music. I felt like I wanted music that was where I could be deeper and tell deeper stories. So maybe I switched maybe about 10 years ago over to doing American roots music. And some of my stuff sounds like country songs. Some of it really are. Mostly they're not, though. They're kind of not exactly country, but
they're kind of in that category of those different things. Now, did you find that when you went into the more acoustic-y thing and didn't have that electric guitar out there, that people were able to get your lyrical content and the depth of the story more quickly or more totally because they didn't have that guitar kind of obscuring what you were saying?
Yeah, and especially when I play songs, shows just by myself, it's very hard to do as a rock star. You can't do that. You sort of need a band and you need to be loud. But with my kind of music, you can do it either way. You can do it with a band and be loud, although not rock and roll kind of loud. Or you should be able to just play the songs by yourself and they should still work. There are a couple of songs I have that I don't play by myself because they just don't come off that well without more instrumentation.
Well, sure.
Most of them do. And because they start that way. They all pretty much start as me sitting here with my acoustic guitar, figuring it out. So usually I can do that. Every once in a while I write a song that I just visualize it, or picture it in my mind, and then I create it with the band. And then I have to figure out how to play it by myself because I never did, So I'm having a few challenges there with this record I just made too. I have to learn how to play it alone if I don't have a band. I should be able to do it either way.
Oh, isn't that interesting too? Because I wrote this book. I write jazz education piano books. I wrote this one called Jazz Piano Etudes in 12 major keys. So I'm at the computer and I'm coming up with this thing. It's all based around George Gershwin's I Got Rhythm set of chord changes. It's an AABA form. And man, I got this whole thing done. And then I realized I look at the sheet music that I made and I'm like, holy crap, it's going to take me months to learn how to play this stuff. Because, I had it in my head, but I could not get my fingers easily and readily able to do that. And also, you're right, like it didn't sound good unless it had that bass and drums. Needed an upright bass in there, needed a drummer in there under the piano. And but I think it must be kind of cool for you because you can just pack up the guitar and just get in your pickup truck or Cadillac or I don't know, what do you drive, a Mercedes with the Airstream on the back of the Mercedes? That's kind of what I picture.
Well, when I'm just doing my own show, like alone solo shows, I have a Toyota 4Runner. It's like a big SUV truck kind of a thing. It's an SUV body on top of a truck chassis.
Oh, okay.
It's good for road trips. And although I haven't made one this year in it, I played out in California just before the lockdown.
Okay.
So I didn't drive to those. I flew out there.
Uh-huh.
When I came back, I was supposed to drive all the way down the East Coast, all the way down to Florida and back up again and do other things too. But of
Wow.
course, so I haven't made a road trip this year, which is unusual.
Yeah.
Sending me emails that I have to come in because I'm way over because I guess they were estimating it based on how many miles I normally drive.
Uh-huh.
Wrong, because this year, since March 16th, I've driven about 11 miles in my truck.
Wow. Well, then you must be close to a chicken ranch or a hog farm or something if you only drove 11 miles. Jeez.
Maybe I've driven a few hundred, but I normally would have driven thousands of miles, maybe 10 or 15,000 miles by this time in the year.
Right.
I would have gone to Florida at least twice, and that's a 2,000-mile round trip without any other little stops, which of course there would be.
Right. Well, you coming from that area down there, Florida, and then being up in your location now, is it ever kind of crazy for your neighbors or people at the gas station see you in this upper East Coast thing and you pop in with a hat? Howdy. Does that freak people out at all, or they kind of all know you by now?
In my little town, most people would go, "Well, there's that idiot with the cowboy hat." So if I go other places around New England, normally I get the looks like, "What is wrong? Why is there a cowboy?" There's a funny thing too that happens once in a while. Good things happen, not just people staring or saying stupid things like, "Hey, Tex!" Like, "Hey, Yankee!" I say back. Carpet bagger, how's it going? I don't do that. I don't want to get punched. So, although most people up here have no idea what a carpetbagger is, so I'd probably be safe. But anyway, I was at an airport waiting in line, to get on the plane. This had to be 4 or 5 years ago. And there was a mother. She was on her cell phone and had a little 5-year-old boy, roughly, next to her. And the kid's just staring at me. And he goes, "I want to be a cowboy," to me. I said, "Well, I think you are really a cowboy. I think you are really one." And he was like, "I am." He was so cute. I was like, oh, my heart melted. He was such a cute little kid. Then his mother looked at me like I was a weirdo talking to her kid. But I said, "No, he wants to be a cowboy." "Oh, well, you can't be a cowboy." And I said, "I told him he could be." I gave her a little winky. Went, "Okay, well, you can be a cowboy." But it was very cute.
Wow, man. It's just, I noticed that too with this whole advent of the internet and the paranoia and the fear that's been instilled in everyone, not just the parents, but the kids and the relatives and the schools and the churches and the government offices. Because I came up in an era, and you probably did too, where in our neighborhood in Ontario, California, man, if we're not in school, we're out the door at 8 o'clock in the morning and we're playing with the other kids, and our parents don't even see us until lunch. And we ride our bikes within a certain range. I mean, they did a map, you can go up to 7th Street in Upland. That's as far north as you can go. And you can go down to the JJ Newberries, but, and we would, follow those rules. But, I remember seeing like older people out cutting their grass or sitting out in the thing with the yard with a beer or some iced tea. And I would go up there and, "Hey, Mrs. Johnson. Hey, Mr. Johnson, what's new? Oh, hey, Robert, how are you?" That was just so comfy and so nice. And every type of person, all the ages, nobody was scared of everybody. And that kind of ecosystem of community has been shattered. I don't know. I'm pissed. I'm pissed about it. I mean, I'm a single guy with no children, and I consciously made that decision partially based on how weird I thought everything was gonna get. Right, but I miss it. I miss that sense of community.
Me too. I don't know if it'll ever come back. I hope so, for their sake, the sake of those kids, and whenever that does come back, because that was a much better time to grow up. I think the whole world wasn't better then, but because there was still a lot of racism and that kind of thing in this country
Uh-huh.
50, 60 years ago. And the farther back you go, the worse it gets.
Right.
But still, except for that, I would say that it was a better quality of life back then. And maybe it was because mostly men worked jobs. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with women working. Don't get the wrong idea.
Uh-huh.
They should have the choice what they want to do with their life, whether it's working or not. But women didn't have to so much like they do today, just for economic reasons. They just didn't have to. And therefore, they were spending more time with the kids and not putting them in daycares and that kind of thing.
Uh-huh.
Maybe that's better. I don't want to make anybody mad at me. I'm not saying women shouldn't work. I'm saying you should do whatever you want. But
well, I get your point, Grant, 150,000%, because my parents both were telling me right in the beginning. They said, we're not rich people and you're going to work. They said, by the time I was 8, I had a job, and I've worked every year since I was 8 years old. I might have even been 7, because I was able to ride a bike and throw a newspaper at that time. But what I thought was so precious to me, and I don't want to make anyone mad either about anything, because I think everybody ought to work. I mean, I think men should work, women should work, kids work to towards your goals. That's the kind of work I'm talking about. But see, my mom stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home housewife until I was 12 years old. And then at that point, my sisters were getting to college and everything. And she said, okay, I'm going to go work as a secretary at the high school, get an office job. She had the time and we needed the money. But having her around all the time, like constantly around when I was in those critical years, because that's where I got my love for music. She was a church pianist. That's where I got my feeling of community, was from church, and her having all of these musician friends and people in the choirs. And I mean, I would not trade growing up in that era for anything. It was, for me, it was really special. And now I think it's probably a lot harder to have that experience now, really.
Yeah, most couples can't afford for one of them not to, to have one of them not working. And by the way, when I say working, I mean working at a job. When you're at home raising children, running a household, that is a 24-hour a day job. It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
I did live in Orange County for about 5 years.
What years?
Like 90 through 95.
Oh, I just missed you, man.
But I had a job out there, regular, like a day job
Mhm.
at there. And my wife was able to stay home when we had 3 kids and they were all under the age of 5.
Wow.
And she had to go back home to the East Coast to see her parents. And so I was the mom, and the dad. I had to take a week, or was it a week or 2? It was maybe a week off of work and do that. And I want to tell you, I was never so glad as when she came back, because that is a full-time little kids. Oh my goodness. 24-hour a day job. 24 hours. I love it.
Yeah.
I was glad when it was over. I've done it several times since then, but boy, that taught me a big lesson at what a huge job and responsibility that is, but how critical it is too. You're raising them. You're literally raising them and doing everything else, cleaning up after them, giving them a bath every day or almost every day if you're a dad, and feeding them and making sure that nothing bad, because kids will try to kill themselves 12 times a day, little ones.
Oh, sure.
That from happening. And boy, it's just so much, but it's also so much fun, rolling around the ground and kids are jumping on you and laughing and tickling and all that stuff.
Yeah, it's just a really good family unit working together synchronistically, I think, is what a lot of our country has been based on for the past few hundred years. And I know exactly what you mean, because see, we didn't have, and my dad also did not have, a lack of respect for my mom doing all of that, because in our family, those are equal. Like the husband going, my dad would drive to the LA Times and he would go through hell and the traffic and all that. But everybody respected what my mom did as at least as valuable, and in some ways more valuable, and a bigger job.
You can get a different job outside the house. You can change jobs every year if you want to, but you can't change that job at home. That one is mission critical, and there's no substitute for it.
Well, yeah, because it's life or death for other human beings. When you when you
raise little animals that don't, they don't operate in society very well if they're not raised by adults who do.
Well, and that goes to my broader point too of how, and you got us on this tact a few minutes ago, of how all of those different levels of family are so important. Because I remember one of the first things I learned when I was young is respect your parents and your aunts and uncles and your grandparents. Now, and listen to what they have to say, because, Robert Mullins, the first, my grandpa, was, and he loved country music, and he didn't like jazz at all. He thought I was an idiot being a jazz guy. But the wisdom that I learned from him just by, shutting up and hearing his stories and hearing what he had to say, and my parents reinforcing, respect your elders, respect your parents, show respect, don't be, and then now that I'm on the other side as, a person that's not young, I see a lot of times I have this wisdom that I got from them, and I've used it. And then I look at somebody who might be 20 or even 15 or 18 in my piano studies program, and I think to myself, if only this person was ready to hear this wisdom that I know, if only. Because I can tell if they're gonna just go, oh man, you're just an old white dude, you don't know anything. And, that's kind of a funny thing too, because older people actually do know a lot, right? Don't you think?
They do. They know more than people who haven't been on the earth that long. So
my grandpa, I'll tell one more quick thing and we'll go back to the music, but I love talking about family stuff. My grandpa one day told me, after I was, in my 20s and stuff, and he said, oh, you've been out around the world touring with them movie stars and stuff. I'm like, yeah. And I said, well, what's it been like for you? He said, well, we took the Winnebago out to California, and then we went to Kansas and down to Florida. And the best thing about vacation, of course, is getting back. Okay, cool. And then the thing that made me laugh so hard is he said, we watched you grow up. You grew up here at our place and with your parents and everything. And you know what the thing that was some of the most fun was about it was we could see when you were going to get into a real serious mess. And me and Irma would look at each other and say, should we warn him that he's going to get in a serious mess, or should we just sit back with a popcorn and enjoy the show?
Well, that's a question, isn't it? I've done it with my own kids, because sometimes some lessons you have to learn the hard way. You don't want them to learn a permanent lesson like, getting killed in a car accident. You don't want them to learn, because you're not learning anything. You're just getting killed. That doesn't help. But some lessons you do need to learn. Unfortunate, but then you really learn, right? When you did something so dumb that you had to pay for it. Well, I bet you won't do it again.
Well, they used to put me on fishing trips when I was like 2 years old and 3. They would get so sick of me trying to wander off that they'd set me in a tree. And, and my mom would dress me in these little weird, like almost little tuxedo outfits, because she didn't have a fishing outfit for me. So my dad's got pictures of me crying with mud all over myself in these trees while he and Grandpa are out there fishing. And of course, what did I do? I fall out of the tree.
I was going to say, they worry about you wandering, but not about falling out of a tree.
Yeah. Well, they figured I'd be a lot safer in about a 3-foot stream of water than I would be like, walking down a dirt road by myself looking for some chicken or something. Anyway, but I just am amazed at how all these things, all this stuff comes into your life. It comes into your songs. It's inspirational. It's part of who you are. Now, are your kids involved in your musical career now? Or do they look at you and say, "Oh man, look at Dad. We can't be a musician."
No, no, none of them really has the serious bug about being a musician.
Uh-huh.
They're all, I mean, my youngest one, Alec, he's the one that was born in Orange County. He's a very good drummer. He's a really good drummer. I'm not cool enough for him to play with me because I play old people's music.
Uh,
In his 20s, so my music is lame and old and boring.
uh-huh.
But maybe someday he'll get over that, and I won't be so lame and boring anymore. Really a good drummer. And the middle child, Catherine, she's an environmental scientist, so she didn't go the music route, but she took lessons for years. She took piano lessons her entire childhood. Flute, she learned to play the bass. She learned to play the piccolo flute and something else too. She's very, very good at music, and she's, unlike me, willing to take lessons, because I never did. I just taught myself because I was a boy and I wanted to go play soccer and try to get a girl. So I was unwilling to buckle down and take lessons. I did teach myself to read music later in life, like in my 20s. Yeah. And my old child, Taylor, didn't go into music at all, but when he was a little kid, he would sing, and he had like the most amazing pitch. Normally children are not, they go all over the pitch map when they sing. They don't have that ear yet, but he did. Even at 5, he would sing a song, and it would be like, he would start in the key of A, and the entire song would be in the key of A, even if he had no music to listen to. He didn't change keys 4 times per verse, which most kids do. So,
boy, yeah. And then working with singers in the studio, I've been in those situations where, I've been paid to produce somebody, and they're singing a cappella, and they get like 4 notes in the key of A, and then they think for a second, and then all of a sudden they're like somewhere between A flat and G in the next few notes. And then, now it's B major and a half crack. And, that kind of stuff just really is of the other world of these new, more robotic, as you called it, robot music or something. I think with an auto tune, a lot of it is robot music. And isn't it interesting, Grant, that for people like us, we hear those things and we go, oh my God, it makes your skin crawl. And then it turned into a thing where younger people just would put auto tune on everything, and they didn't care.
Yeah, and they're singing.
It wasn't
in concerts too. Really?
Yeah, well, it wasn't like, oh man, I need to work on my singing. It'd just be like, screw working on my singing. I'm going to work on my dancing. Right?
Yeah. I'm not a fan. I guess maybe it's it's our generation. That's why we don't like it. But the younger people do. It's okay, they can like it.
Well, let's go back to the IndyCollab for a minute and how that whole thing kind of got going, because you've obviously been able to do this thing as a person completely alone, completely just you and the hat and the guitar, but it seems like a massive undertaking to get thousands of people into an organization. And how do you raise money to fund all that? And then the legal part. And I mean, dude, tell me something about that. I'm really interested in that.
Well, it grew organically. At the beginning, we might've had 50 or 60 people that wanted to be part of it. And it was started by me and Eileen Sherman. She's the co-founder with me of the IndyCollab. Right. We got the idea simultaneously but separately. I just knew her a little bit, and just from some of the social events related to the Grammys back then, and it was right about when Facebook was becoming really, really popular, super popular. Even
so about 15 years ago.
No, we really started it 5 years ago, but well, before that, Grammys had a way you could communicate inside their website. Then they got rid of that, so most people went to Facebook because we wanted to stay in touch with each other.
Right.
And because it's fun. It opened up a whole world of new friends to me. I used to call them my music friends, like these few dozen people that were on Facebook, and I figured I'd never meet them. But then they just became my friends, because over time we did meet each other. Like when I would go to LA, I would just go to Facebook and go, who's in LA that I can maybe have lunch together, or just, hang out for a few hours. And it just started, and Eileen was kind of doing the same thing, just because a lot of fun. We love doing it. And then when one day we met at a mixer party, and yeah, it was during Grammy week 5.5 years ago weekend. And she said, you know what I want to do? And I said, I bet you want to like get together like this a lot, like more than just once a year. We
Right.
should like meet people in New York and meet people in Denver and meet people in who knows every city, all the big places where a lot of us are.
Sure.
And she said, that's exactly, we had the same idea at the same time. So we sat down about a few weeks later in New York City and planned out putting on like a showcase where we would just have an evening and have maybe 20 people each get up and do a song for 5 minutes. You could do it by yourself, or maybe you have a duo. There's no time to set up a whole band.
Right.
Not for a single song.
Sure.
So just we do like an open mic, but only us, only we, like an inside open mic, basically. And then
Cool.
you can pay for the venue just by charging everybody $25. I think it was the first one.
Yeah.
We don't make any money. We just break even and not lose too much. We always lose a little money.
Okay.
We pay for it ourselves out of our
Okay.
own pocket. And that was the first one we did in June of 2015 in New York City at the Drama League downtown. And then everybody heard about it because it spread on Facebook, and all the pictures went, you know how we are with pictures. Everybody's taking selfies. And then we had to do another one. So we did one in LA, and that one had like 150 people come to it in September, I think that was. Yeah. And that was a big one. So we had to rent a bigger place. So we had to charge a little bit more money. But still, we keep it. We limited it to $50. So if we can't fill the place up or break even, you know, with the venue, or try to break even, then we just don't do it. But we've done maybe 18 or 19 of these now around the country.
Wow. Incredible.
In Chicago and Atlanta and Philadelphia, and many times in New York and many times in LA, and then probably some other places I'm forgetting to mention. But yeah, we've done them around the country, and it's just great fun. It's really a lot of fun. And these are really our friends now. Now we have about 2,000 people in the Indy Collaborative, and it's totally free to join. We only charge if we're going to do an event, because we have to pay.
Right.
Like the last one we rented in LA cost, you know, like $4,000 or $5,000 to rent the venue. So, you know, we need a big venue now. We got a 360 seat venue in North Hollywood, the El Portal Theater there.
Oh yeah.
Nice place. And boy, that was great. I don't know if we're going to do it this year. I don't think this coming year. I don't think so, because I'm not even sure if the Grammys are going to happen in the normal way. They're not even sure.
Right.
Coming up in what, 4 months or 5 months, something like that.
Yeah. Right. Well, that brings us kind of full circle, man, all the way back to that amazing video you did with the IndyCollab, where you got all these people all over the world all together doing this super cool and positive thing. Because here's what I like about your message. Again, I'm going to repeat it as we're getting near the end of the time that I've got today. But when the whole world fell apart this year, and bro, it did. I mean, I remember when the pandemic stuff first started happening, and there was all this confusion, and then I started losing gig after gig after gig, and month after month. And then in LA, there was all of these protests, and the protests turned into the rioters and the looting, and like the whole city's been shut down and everything's going crazy. And look at you, man. Look at what you're doing in the middle of all this. Like, you're carrying on with the spirit and with your community. And by the way, I'm a member of the IndyCollab, and I've never had the time or the energy to ever go to anything, or ever, I'm on the email list all the time. I'm like, man, there's that IndyCollab with that Grant dude again. One day I'm going to have to get a chance to write him back or meet him or something. But the spirit of that kind of a community, doesn't music just have this huge impact, pulling everybody together?
Yeah. I mean,
everyone crisis.
Universal language, but it's more than that. It's more than just a language. It's a connection, like heart to heart kind of connection among people, and brings people together, even people that wouldn't normally you wouldn't think they would be friends. But if they have a musical connection,
Right.
all that stuff, it certainly transcends race
Yeah.
and all that nonsense that no one should care about. I have friends of every race from 50 countries and every religion, and I love them all. And I think that's what music brings to the world. I've always said music could heal the world if everybody would just let it do it instead of going down this dark road of squabbling all the time and always being, upset about everything. I'll give you an example. It starts even at the very local level. In my little tiny town here, they just redid the big kind of main drag that goes through the main part of town.
Uh-huh.
Always a very busy road because it has big shopping, center on it, and fast food places and other things too. So it's always busy. They redid it. They made really nice turn lanes and islands, and then really good signage, and they redid all the sidewalks and made them really nice. And people are complaining about it constantly on Facebook. Like, first of all, it was inconvenient that they were doing it, because you got to go down the road. It's under construction for 2 months. Even now that it's done and it's beautiful, it looks great. It's never looked this good. It looks like a beautiful town in Southern California, like when I used to live in Orange County. Everything is just planned out and really nice.
Like Irvine, California.
Right. But now everyone's complaining about it because it's different. Come on. This is where it starts. And now you can see it extend at the highest level of the country, with people tearing down statues of, the greatest people that lived in this country. They tore down some people that weren't so great too, but there's no excuse for tearing down Abraham Lincoln's statue or George Washington's statue. I don't think. I mean, some slave trader. Yeah. Okay. You can move that one to a museum maybe, but I don't think it should be a matter of for the mob to decide which ones stay, which ones go.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole
as a society and say, or town.
Wow, that's a whole can of worms with all of that stuff. And what I just thought was so interesting with one of the other guitar players, my buddy Vinny Caggiano, who's out in Venice Beach. We were talking about just all these changes and the stuff that's going on too, because we're both very comfortable with change, lots of, and up to a certain extent. And he said, the problem with what's going on now in the society is the knee-jerk, instantaneous, judgmental reaction across the board.
It's not healthy. Not a healthy way to behave.
Right. Because when people, and granted the pandemic has made everybody's fuse about this short. Now, I mean, you can go online and you could say, good morning, and 15 people can unfriend you because you looked like you were happy with your muffin, and muffins are not okay, not in 2020. You can only eat ice cream, no muffins allowed. It's that kind of silliness, but you see what I'm getting at.
It's true. It is true. It's the cancel culture thing, which I'm not a fan of. I'm not in favor of it at all. It's not healthy, mentally healthy, I don't think.
Then the hardest part of all of it is to be mentally healthy during this, basically what they're calling, some people are calling it the end times, other people are calling it whatever, but that's where it all comes back to the music, because I've written more, I've produced more, and that's always been my coping mechanism, Grant, is writing and producing and playing, because if I didn't have music, I would have just been a thug, man. I mean, really, when I was younger, and I'm still a big guy. I'm 6'3", I weigh about 230, and you don't want to see me at the end of a gig at 2 a.m. in your alley. You really don't want to, okay? You don't want it. So being able to put all that aggression, which I think is normal, being aggressive and being a male is a normal part of that, but you need to channel it in healthy ways. That's why kids playing football is good. That's why soccer is good. That's why boxing is good. I advocate boxing even for women.
Sure.
I think women should box, and I think they should box with a punching bag in their yard, and they just put whatever man's face that they're mad at, put that right on the tree. And then after you've torn that paper up, then go to the last man you dated that you still are angry at him, or that, left you at the altar or whatever. Beat the crap out of him for a while. And, 20, 30 minutes of that, then you're ready to go in the kitchen and make a lovely pie.
I think women learning to fight in general. Like I took karate lessons for a long time, and I was a teacher for more than 10 years. And I think it's really good for especially young women to learn how to defend themselves,
Mm-hmm.
because if they're going to be attacked, it's 99% chance going to be from a man who's going to try to steal their purse or whatever, something like that.
Right. Well, yeah, right.
You need to be able to defend themselves, especially if they're, attractive young women. But everybody does. You shouldn't be a victim. You should have at least a fighting chance. Well, no pun intended, to,
Right.
move off something really, life-changing in a negative way, like being attacked.
Well, yeah, one of my favorite gifts that I give to women is I give them pepper spray, like birthday, pepper spray, Christmas, pepper spray, Valentine's Day, pepper spray, and a hammer, because men are more likely. men are more likely to be an idiot on Valentine's Day, right? What?
I'm wondering what kind of hammer. Is it like a ball peen, no pun intended, or a
Ooh, wow, man. Now, where do they come up with names like that for hammers? I bet you there's a country song in that term somewhere.
There must be.
Yeah.
Self-driving car technology, all that technology that's coming now. I bet someone's going to write a song about a truck that leaves you, right? Drove away all by itself. It's coming. Someone has to write that.
Wow, leave it to a country guy like you to be on the cutting edge of bringing the technology into the future of country music. And that's actually, Grant, how I think of a lot of your music, because it's very relevant. It's beautifully done. You're an amazing guy. I can't thank you enough for stopping by and hanging out with me today. So, before we wrap up, let's go through the important stuff. Your website is?
It's my three names, Grant Maloy Smith, just like my mother called me when I was misbehaving. Grant Maloy Smith, get over here. But Maloy only has one L.
Okay.
And probably should put little hyphens in between the three names, but I think it'll work either way. So if you just go to grantmaloysmith.com, you'll find me. And that page, my website has links to all the social media stuff, like Facebook, YouTube, and Spotify, and that's Instagram. It's all there. There's little icons that we all recognize are all there.
So really the best way to find you is just through the website, because you tied it all together in there.
Right there, easy to see. So
And I'm used to seeing you on Facebook. I mean, I really love your sense of humor on Facebook, because, as you said, there's so many weird things going on, but then I'll just be going through, there'll be like 10 dark, horrible posts, and there'll be some country freaking little thing that you put up there. And I just start laughing. So I just want to thank you for your positive impact in the world and the community, for what you're doing for all the indie people, just in general. You're a super cool dude, man. And best of luck with your Grammy bid and the American Roots with your new music. And I'll be seeing you around soon, I'm sure.
Thank you, man. Thanks for having me on today, and thanks to everybody for watching. I appreciate it.
You got it. Take care.